Hey guys, we're going to talk about a couple things briefly in this video. One, how to add force vectors to a compound movement pattern to improve mind muscle activation, and then just specifically within the context of an elevated push-up. So it's a really nice way to apply this thought process. A couple things just during an elevated push-up in general. We're wanting to kind of start with the shoulder blades down and back. I know there's some debate on that right now in terms of whether or not to give that cue because it causes people to keep the shoulders locked down and back throughout the whole movement pattern. I can appreciate that, but I would just say start there. It sets you up good in terms of activating the shoulder stabilizers and not allowing the shoulders to elevate towards your ears. As you're moving through the push-up pattern from there, as long as the shoulders are staying down, I really am totally fine with the shoulder blade being able to glide around the rib cage freely. You don't have to keep it locked down and back, but I think starting in that position gives a nice symptomatic relief for people that have shoulder pain with a push-up. From there, what we're talking about today is adding, technically this would be horizontal adduction, so moving the arm across the body. But what we do is we add these force vectors in terms of an isometric. You can do this with a bar, you can do this with most machines, you can't do it with dumbbells. So as much as I am a fan of dumbbell training, you can't add force vectors to dumbbells unless you're adding like a band or some other dynamic form of resistance along the way. But if we have a fixed surface that we're pressing into, we can add an intentional force vector within that in an isometric manner. Within this, we would be adding horizontal adduction, which is another function of the pec muscle, while we are getting, so in a push-up, if you really just think, we're moving the humerus from an extended position to a flexed position. So that is a huge function of the pectoralis major. What we're not doing is moving it from a strongly abducted position horizontally to an adducted position horizontally. Some of that does happen depending on the angle of your arms. So for the people who keep their elbows really tucked, this is more pure flexion extension. For the people who come out wide, well, this is more horizontal abduction to adduction. And we don't always think about all these different things as we're doing a push-up. And I typically encourage people to have about a 45-degree angle at their elbows, which gives one, a nice combination of those two movement patterns, but also does set the angle of the shoulder joint up for a better position, in my opinion, and limits extra stress on the AC joint that can be seen when the arms are out wide. It also sets the subacromial space up for a little bit less likely impingement. None of those things are super important for you as the user, but what we're going to talk about here is the force vector. So what I want to add to a push-up to make it more effective is the intent to push my hands together during the movement. And I've got a towel here to kind of show you. If I am posted up into this push-up position, if I were to let my hands move during this intention, I'm gonna be pushing my hands together as if I was trying to scrunch up the towel into the table. That would be the horizontal adduction. That gives a really strong isometric contraction of the pec. If I take the towel away, now I'm gonna be doing that same thing into the table, but my hands aren't gonna move because of the friction of the table and my hands. So I'm pushing hard, like I'm trying to basically, in my mind, because I've told you guys many times, don't focus on the hands, focus on like more close to the muscle in terms of what you're thinking about. So when I'm doing it, I'm trying to think about bringing my biceps toward each other because that's going to get an even better pec activation. But even if you did just think about pushing your hands together and scrunching up, you're still going to get an increased pec activation. But think about bringing the arms closer towards each other in this top position. You should feel your chest muscles kick on right off the bat. From there, we're going to maintain that intention of pushing the arms toward each other the entire time as we're slowly coming down and slowly coming up. Now that makes the intensity of the contraction for the push-up so much stronger without actually adding any extra load to the joint in terms of like within the force vector of just flexion extension. Now it can do different things. It can help to offload certain joints. And I'll be totally honest in saying that it does put more load onto certain joints. So this is maybe not going to be super comfortable for everybody, but I would say from an overall wear and tear standpoint, adding things like this into your routine so that we're not always just focused in a progressive overload manner of adding more weight to the lift, more weight to the lift, because that's always adding weight within one force vector. And that tends to cause more wear and tear on the joints and connective tissue than it does to keep that weight the same. And when it comes time to progress, adding another force vector or adding an intensifier in terms of your mind muscle connection, that can bring an overwhelming amount of new stimulus to the soft tissue of the musculature while not providing an extra amount of wear and tear or load transfer to the joint and connective tissue. So I really like that thought process. We can bring that into a lot of other movements. Back training is another one that I do it a lot with in terms of lat activation. But I just wanted to show that within the context of a push-up today, by pressing the arms in toward each other, in towards the surface. Again, you can do this with a barbell bench press or a Smith machine bench press as well as a lot of machines. But that activation process does a really good job at providing more of the tension component of muscular, we'll say, damage. There's those mechanisms of growth, right? When we're talking about muscle damage, there is added tension, there is the chemical component, as we have lactic acid and other waste product accumulations in the tissues. And then we also have so mechanical tension, chemical response of training, and then we also have just micro trauma. Those are kind of the three mechanisms of growth when we're training. And so this really plays into that mechanical tension component that we can add to any lift as long as the setup is correct to provide an extra stimulus. So hope that was helpful. I know it's kind of a higher level complexity video, but if you guys have any questions, just comment below and I'd be happy to talk with you more about that. Thanks for watching.